The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning. A very warm welcome to everyone who has joined the webinar. My name's Adrian Reid and I'm President at IIBA UK. And I'm really pleased to say that we're joined this morning by two speakers who are going to talk to us about the BA of the Year Award. Now, as many of you will be aware, the BA of the Year Award is presented at the Business Analyst Conference Europe every year, and it's a prestigious award that really helps to recognise those in the community that are really making a difference to the profession and the organisations that they're part of. The award's really grown in recognition over the last few years, with employers and practitioners really starting to recognise it. And the great news is that the application window for the Business Analyst of the Year 2015 is still open. So if you or a colleague are interested in applying, there's still time to do so. So with that in mind, we thought it would be really useful to put together a webinar to explain a little bit about what the award is, why you might be interested in applying, and the process of application and what might happen if you do indeed win. So with that in mind, we have two speakers. First of all, we have Debbie Paul, who is MD at Assist KD and the key organiser of the award. And Debbie's going to be talking to us about how the award works, how the application process works, and a little bit about why the award was formed in the first place. We're also going to hear from Sandra Leek, and I'm sure many of you will be familiar with Sandra's name, as she is the current Business Analyst of the Year. And Sandra's going to talk a little bit about how to apply from an applicant's point of view, and will also tell us about a few tips and tricks she learnt along the way, and also what it meant for her. Now, we'll also have an opportunity to ask Debbie and Sandra any questions that we may have. And you'll notice on your screen you've got a little question or chat window. If you do have any questions at any time, please do type them in when they occur to you. What we'll do towards the end of the webinar, we'll actually have an opportunity to ask those questions, but you can type them in at any time, so please do type in questions as they occur to you. So I'll hand over now to Debbie Paul, who's going to give us a bit of an overview of the award, how it works, and so forth. So Debbie, over to you.
Thanks, Adrian, and good morning, everybody. And thanks for this opportunity to talk to you about the Business Analyst of the Year Award. First of all, I thought it might be useful just to revisit why we feel we need this award, and why we feel we need to celebrate business analysis. It's partly because business analysis isn't always recognised for the excellent work that business analysts do. And what we wanted to do was provide a platform where we could look at the work that business analysts have done over the last year and recognise the excellence of the contribution business analysts make to their organisations and to the development of the work of those organisations. So initially, one of the key reasons that we have this award is to recognise excellence in business analysis work. Secondly, we wanted to give individual BAs an opportunity to put forward the work that they've done, the approaches they've taken to different situations, and how they've applied different tools and techniques effectively. And on the back of that, to give them an opportunity to develop their own personal profile. And that applies not just within their organisation, because quite often the people who do apply for this award, and possibly the ones who get to finalists or even win, their profile really does go up. And we wanted to give them the opportunity to do that. But also, we wanted it to be a platform for promoting business analysis, so that if we can actually say, we have awarded somebody Business Analyst of the Year, then actually that gives us something that we can say that says yes, we've got this award because there is such excellent work in business analysis, and as a profession, we want to have a way of shouting about it. So this is where the award originated, was to ensure that business analysis was recognised and had a platform for promotion. So looking back over the history, and I can't quite believe it's been going so many years now, initially my company, Assist KD, became involved because a number of us were involved in writing books on business analysis for BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. And BCS had always had awards for lots of different categories and lots of different professions. And we felt that it was very important that business analysis was recognised as one of those professions. So initially, the award was issued at the IT Industry Awards evening. However, once the BA conference was up and running, it seemed that that was a much better home for our award, because the BA conference itself really celebrates business analysis and brings together business analysts from all over the world to discuss the work that we do and the possible new approaches we might adopt. So celebrating the BA of the year seemed to be a very good idea at that conference. And that's where it's been running for the last few years, and will again this year. And every year what we try to do is make sure that we celebrate not just the winner but also the finalists. And also we like to mention that various other people didn't get to be a finalist or an award winner, but they've put in some excellent submissions, and it's always very sad that there can only be so many finalists and only one winner. But celebrating it at the BA conference has really been an opportunity for us to come together and look at excellence in business analysis work. I thought it might be an idea if we just went through the process, because quite often people ask me, well, how do I go about applying and what do I have to do? And this is an overview of the process that we adopt. So first of all, we put up a BA of the Year page and a link on the Assist KD website. And this is where we're putting information about Business Analyst of the Year, not just for this year, but we've also started to populate a history of the award as well. But on that website, there is an application form that can be downloaded. And the application form sets out deadlines, it sets out the themes for the year, which I'll come on to in a moment. And it includes a series of questions, mostly based around the themes, for you to write and demonstrate, this is why I should be considered for BA of the Year. And the application form is very, very important because it goes through into the next 2 rounds of judging. So the first round is where we look at all of the application forms and evaluate them. And they're all evaluated against a set of predefined criteria, and they're all individually scored on those criteria. And the scoring is done by 3 judges separately. So they do not discuss, they never discuss, they just put their scores together for their own evaluation of the form. And then the chief judge of that panel collates the information and looks at where we have the top 5. And the top 5 from that evaluation are our finalists. And they are then invited for interview, and that takes place usually the 1st or 2nd week of September. And we have the 5 finalists come along for interview, where they are interviewed by a panel of 3 judges. And the 3 judges are always interested in different aspects. So some of the aspects they're interested in will be concerned with the themes for this year, but sometimes they're looking at broader aspects, such as how you engage with the BA community and what you do to develop yourself and those types of issues. So the interviews take place, and at the end of that day, the 3 judges, again using predefined criteria, evaluate and assess and identify the winner. That is then very hurriedly rushed across to the chief judge of the form evaluation panel, who sorts out the trophy and the engraving and puts together an envelope. And at that point, only 4 people know who the winner is. Then at the actual award presentation, as I said before, that takes place at the conference. There is a session delivered this year by Paul Turner, in fact for the last few years by Paul Turner, and he talks about each of the finalists individually and then asks one of the keynote speakers, whoever is scheduled to speak at the time of the award, to present the award to the winner. This year we're delighted that the award presentation will be made by one of the keynote speakers, who is Tessa Jowell, who is an MP currently, and she is going to be presenting the award for us. At that moment, the presenter opens the envelope and then everybody will know who the winner is. And the award is presented, we have photos and hopefully some very happy people. So that's the overview process. Now every year we look at what the theme should be, and we consider, you know, what themes have we had before, what are people talking about, and are there any areas that we feel we need to ask BAs about in terms of the work that they've done. And these are the 3 themes for 2015. Now at the moment, value and delivering value is a very, very key element of anybody's work, because, you know, in times of economic difficulty, in times of high competition, delivering value is very, very important. And so the first theme, how have you helped deliver value for your organisation, we considered to be very important in today's industry and business environment. The second one is back to this issue of recognition, because even after all of these years of conferences, qualifications, publications about business analysis, lots of excellent work going on in organisations, there is still a question mark over, well, how well recognised are business analysts for the work that they do within their organisations and more generally in the information systems industry. So this is the second theme around how have you helped to build recognition. And that recognition could be internal, it could be external, it could be both. But it's, you know, what have you done to bring to the wider world some recognition of business analysis? And lastly, we decided this year to have a theme around requirements. And that's because requirements work is at the heart of what business analysts do. But I think sometimes we overlook that, and sometimes people get very hooked into requirements at quite a detailed level, whereas of course requirements can be at a very, very high outline, very general level initially, and we still need to consider what that means and what solution might be relevant given that context. So that's the third element and the third theme for this year. We thought, let's actually bring it back to requirements and say, you know, what have you done with requirements to ensure that the options are considered, the requirements are understood, and the right solution is delivered, whatever that might be. So those are our 3 themes, and they form the basis for the application form that I mentioned earlier, and they will be very much at the heart of the applications that people put in and the criteria that people are assessed against in the BA of the Year Award for 2015. So that's basically how it works, and what we hope every year is that people will apply and will engage with the award, and that we'll have a successful award to present at the conference. And every year it has been so, and we have had examples of some absolutely excellent business analysis work that people have been doing. which I think is all to the credit of the profession that we work in. So that's everything from me. Can I hand you back to Adrian now to just move across to Sandra?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Debbie, for a really quite comprehensive and useful outline of how the award works there. So just before we hand over to Sandra, just a reminder to everyone on the line that there is the opportunity to ask questions. So please do type those questions in. We do have quite a few questions coming in, which is great, but there will be time to answer questions. So please, as they occur, do type them in. And so with that, I will hand over to Sandra. So I'm just Sandra, I'm just handing over the presentation stick to you, as it were.
Thanks, Adrian. Good morning, everybody, and thank you to Adrian for inviting me along today. As you know, my name's Sandra Leek, and I am BA of the year 2014, which is something I never thought I was going to be able to say. Hence the rabbit in the headlight look on the photo on my front page. So what I'd like to do today is talk you through what it looks like from an applicant's perspective. So we've heard from Debbie in terms of the organisation and what happens in the background and how people are assessed. But I just thought it would be really useful to understand what it feels like from an applicant's process and how it works for me. So, apologies, my thing is just not going to work properly today. Let's go back to Debbie's slide. No, for some reason it is just not working. Let me just try again. There we go. There I am. So, done through those. There we go. There I am. So, why did I apply? Well, for me, it was a completely impromptu and independent decision. I had no plans to apply this year at all. I'd seen some reminders from people. I'd heard people talking about it. I'd spoken to my mentors and my colleagues. And to be honest, I never thought it was anything I was going to apply for. But a couple of years ago, I had completed my Expert BA accreditation, and that gave me much more confidence to believe in myself. And, you know, from a lot of BA's perspective, I think we are the type of people that get on and do our job, but don't recognise sometimes how good we are. So I saw the reminders and thought, why not? Let's just go for it. So I didn't know that my company had a structured application process for entering the BA of the Year competition. Hence, I completely ignored it. I just applied independently. So one thing I would suggest is that if you are thinking of applying for it and you do work for a company rather than independently or for yourself, check with your company to see if they do have a structured process, because within Lloyd's we do actually go through a selection process. But as I said, I completely ignored it and applied independently, which for me worked really well, and it was much appreciated within the company. But as I said, I would definitely check on that. So for me, there was no plan behind it, which is very unusual for me. It was completely impromptu. So what's it about? As Debbie said, it's an application process, an application and an interview by a panel of 3 very experienced interviewers. And each year has a different theme. So for me, last year, it was all around organisational change. And I was very lucky in that I've been involved in a very big programme of work, leading a massive piece of organisational change for Lloyd's. So I was very lucky in terms of the theme for that year. But this year, in terms of delivering organisational value, building that recognition and delivery of the right solution, that is absolutely key to what we do in the business analysis world. So I would say the majority of business analysts would be able to find something in their career, in their role, whether current or whether past, that would align to that theme. And one thing I would say is make sure that when you apply, please follow that theme. As Debbie indicated, it is key to that application and sifting process. So although you stick to that theme and make sure you align to that theme, don't forget to think outside the box. So I think one of the really important things that we do as business analysts, we give back to our organisation, to our industry. So don't just think about what you do in your day-to-day role. Think about how you use your skills in your community, what you give back to the industry. So taking part in webinars like this, do you present at all in work? All those sorts of things can feed into that process and help build that really good application that I'm sure everybody is capable of. So how did I approach it? Well, I think one of the things that is quite unnatural for a lot of us in the BA world is about selling yourself as a BA. As I said, I think most of us get on with the job. We don't think about selling ourselves and selling our skills and saying we are wonderful as BAs. We get on with our job, we get our heads down. And I know that from talking to my mentors over the years, one of the things I'm very guilty of is if I write anything to do with my role, it tends to be, we've done this, or my team has done this. It's never, I've done this. So think about the way you're writing your application form. I don't think necessarily that was very natural for me within the BA world, and I found that process quite difficult on the application. So be prepared to step out of your comfort zone. That was the most difficult thing for me. The subject matter I didn't find particularly difficult because, as I said, my role was particularly aligned to that theme, but the selling of that was very difficult for me. And allow plenty of time to complete your application. It is an iterative process. I tended to do a draft, go back to it, do another draft, go back to it. And the other thing I did was pretend I was writing the application for somebody else. I tried to write it as if I was that third party, and I found that really useful to take the sort of we and my team out of the equation. And that might be quite difficult to do for some of us, but for me it was a particularly useful tip. I just found it much easier doing it that way. In terms of interview preparation in the day, know your subject, read and reread your application, because when you apply, those 3 examiners may not know you at all. They may not know your strengths, they may not know your character, they may never have met you. So make sure that you're selling yourself in that application, because that is what will get you through to that final. And practice your interview technique, especially if you get nervous in pressure situations. Sit in front of the mirror. Get your spouse, your partner, your dog to sit in front of you and just listen to you. You may look mad at the time, but believe me, it pays off on the day. And if you know anybody in your organisation or any colleagues, friends who have applied, got through to the final or won, have a chat to them. See how they found the process. Everybody finds it different. I've got a number of colleagues that have entered, have got through to the final and won. And I think it's really useful to understand their experience of it, because no 2 experiences are the same. What I went through isn't going to be the same for you guys, but hopefully some of my experience can help you in terms of some tips for the day. And on the day, I have to say, I was absolutely petrified on the day. I didn't know what to expect, although I've been through similar interviews before. It was the quickest interview I think I've ever had. It shot by. Before I knew it, I was walking out of the room. But what I did find is preparation is key. Don't go in not knowing your subject. You know, I think it's very important to understand that theme again, but again, to understand what else you're giving back to the industry and to, you know, the analysis world. So be very prepared and make sure that you understand what you're going in with. In terms of after effects, I wasn't prepared for the publicity this would generate. I didn't expect the publicity within my organisation, because I seem to be mentioned on every business analysis meeting, every publication, every newsletter for months. And that wasn't just as a result of winning, that was a result of getting through to the final. I think you need to remember that getting through to the final is a huge deal. If you get through to the final, you have beaten a number of very, very good BAs. It's a very, very tough competition. There are lots of excellent BAs out there. So if you get through to that final, think of it as a huge achievement. It's a massive achievement. You get to go to the conference, which is a wonderful couple of days. You meet so many people, and you've really achieved something by getting there. And I know Debbie thinks the same as that, but I don't think we celebrate enough the people that get through to the final. And remember, this award isn't just for you. It reflects on your BA community, your practice, and your company. So it's all about not just you, but your practice, how your company values the BA profession, and it's a huge achievement. And think about, not only in the application process, but after perhaps you've got to do the final or even one, think about what you give back. As a BA of the year, I expect to give back to the industry. So I'm taking part in webinars, I'm writing newsletter articles, I'm also on the committee for the next BA conference. So what I want to try and do is give my perspective as an applicant, as a finalist, as a winner, and try and make things better within the industry and give something back. So I think that is a really important feature, and think about it. If you're not involved in extracurricular activities, so to speak, think about how you can be and what you'd like to do. So in summary, if you're thinking of applying, just ask yourself why not. There is absolutely no reason that many of you would not be a suitable applicant for BA of the Year. I never thought I would win it. Before this year, I never thought of applying for it. And as you can tell from the picture at the start, I was like a rabbit in a headlight when I won. So please don't think it's not for me. Think about yourself logically. Think about yourself in the third person and think, would I recommend that person to go through that process? So in terms of tips, please stick to the theme. That is really important. Because, as I said, at paper sifting stage, when we look at the applications, you know, one of the things that is going to come out is, have they stuck to the theme? Have they thought about how that application can align to what we want this year? And be prepared, not only to step out of your comfort zone, which, you know, is a hard one for us in the analysis world, but be prepared for the publicity it will generate as well. You know, if I would say one thing to the ladies on this call, I'd say get your hair done before the final, because I didn't and I regret it. And be prepared to sell your BA capabilities. It's all about you. It's all about what you've achieved, what you can do, what you bring to the community and the industry. So that is really a summary of how my year is going, I suppose. I mean, I'm very busy. As I said, I'm involved in the BA conference committee. We've just had one of our biggest meetings on that to decide who's going to talk at the conference. I'm writing newsletter articles. I'm getting involved in webinars like this. I think it's really important as BA of the Year to say, yeah, this is what I do, and you know, let's raise awareness of our industry and make sure that we make the most of our people. So that's probably it from me. I have put my email address on there. I'm more than welcome to take queries by my email. That's not a problem at all if you don't want to ask a question on the call. I'm quite happy to discuss anything about the award, the process, what it's meant for me, and if I can help you in any way, I'm more than happy to. So thank you for your time today, and I'll hand over to Adrian.
Brilliant, and thank you very much, Sandra. So we do have we have time for some questions now, which is great. I'm just going to list through the questions we have. We have a number of questions here. So the first question is a sort of logistic one, really, and that is there an application deadline? So Debbie, you're probably well placed to answer that one.
Yes, there is a closing date for applications, but you'll be pleased to know there's plenty of time because it's the 17th of July. So a few months to really pull together a good application.
Fantastic. Okay, and the I'm just, apologies, a slight technical issue with my screen sharing here. Sorry, I'll move on to the next question while I'm getting that sorted. The next question is about geography. Does it just apply to UK candidates, or is it wider?
It is wider, and in fact, in previous years, we have had applications from other countries, and they are evaluated in exactly the same way, because the BA award is the BA award at the BA conference, and the BA conference last year was attended by people from 28 countries. So the BA of the Year award is a representation across that extensive BA community. I have to say most of the applications at the moment come from the UK, but that hasn't been exclusively the case for a number of years.
Fantastic. So if there is anyone outside the UK on the line, we'd encourage them to apply as well. Okay, the next question is about job title. So are entrants permitted to apply if they have a job title other than BA? For example, business architect, consultant, or so forth?
Absolutely. The way the award is organised is all around themes and around the business analysis work done. So as long as somebody can fill in the application form and relate the answers to those themes, demonstrating business analysis work, then that's absolutely fine, and job title does not come into the evaluation at all.
Okay, fantastic. We then have a couple of questions about timing and duration. I'll sort of bundle them together, but the first question is around, so if you apply in 2015, do you need to provide evidence of delivering against the theme specifically in 2015? And I'll bundle that with another similar related question, which is, Sandra mentioned thinking about past experiences within your career. Is there a guideline around how current that should be? So, for example, the past year, past 5 years, past decade, or so forth?
It's an interesting one, that, because with relation to the themes that concern delivering value for your organisation and delivering the right solution, we are looking for project work or assignment work that has been done within the last year, 18 months, I would say. So back before that, it really is not as applicable. However, in terms of the theme about building recognition of business analysis and engaging with the community in that, some people have engaged with the community for many years, and it's relevant to say that. But we are looking for currency.
Okay, so currency is the key there.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question here. It might be a controversial question. I'm not sure whether you can answer this one or not, Debbie, but I'll ask it anyway. Are you able to share, even if it's ballpark, how many applications you received for the 2014 award?
To be honest, I wasn't a judge in the 2014 award at all, but I believe it was in the order of 25, 26.
Okay, that's useful. That's useful. Okay, and the next question is around seniority, and the question the question is around whether junior BAs can apply. So, for example, if you haven't been in the job for years and years, but you've still made a contribution or a significant contribution, could someone with less experience apply? And how would that be judged against someone who may have 10 or 20 or 30 years worth of experience?
That is a very good question, and I have to say we have actually wondered in previous years about dividing the award into two on the basis of years of experience. So having, if you like, somebody with, 2 to 7 years and then somebody with more experience. We haven't done that as yet, but it is something that we consider because we are asked this question a lot. What I would say, though, is that the the work that is put forward and the way in which people explain their contribution and value delivery is what's important. And really, if somebody has got a good project story to tell over the last year, 18 months, then it's worthwhile applying, because that doesn't relate to level of seniority or experience. It relates to a piece of work that they did in that time frame. In the actual interview, that is where maybe experience does help, because some people who have been VAs for a very long time may be more comfortable in that environment. But I would actually say, having been an interview judge for some of the years, that that's not necessarily the case. And the questions are very much geared around the themes and aspects of the themes, aspects of your personal development, and again, it is having the ability to demonstrate a level of excellence that really has to come through. So I think for less experienced people, they do have to think about it quite seriously, because we do get a lot of very experienced applicants like Sandra. But it is more around the information you can put forward on an excellent piece of work that is the basis for a lot of the judging.
Okay.
Can I just jump in there, Alison?
No, please.
Thank you. I think one of the things to remember is, if you get to interview stage, it's just not just what you've done, it's how you've done it. And you don't have to be necessarily very experienced to do things the right way. And that's something else that they will ask you about in the interview as well. So I think Debbie's absolutely right. I mean, just because you're a less senior VA doesn't mean to say that you haven't done an excellent piece of work that aligns to that theme. So please don't let that stop you from applying.
Actually, Adrian, can I add to that as well, please? Because that's a really good point from Sandra. Sometimes very experienced VAs are very used to working in a particular way. And sometimes you talk to maybe, a newer VA or a less experienced VA, and they tell you about a particular technique or approach or something they've been reading about that they're trying out, and they think it'll be beneficial for their work. That's really exciting. And so sometimes it's more about attitude than experience.
Agree, Debbie.
Fantastic, brilliant. And just a related question that's been asked, to some extent, about this idea of value added. And the question, I'll summarise it, but it's around whether the judgment is made on absolute or relative value. So I'm sensing that, is it literally, well, this project delivered more ROI than this one, and the BA was directly linked to that, or is it more relative? And if it's relative, what are the parameters? So the person asking the question suggests, is it around innovation, or are there other parameters around that value that are considered?
Okay, actually, that theme is deliberately open, and the judging will look at whatever anybody puts forward. When we've asked questions and had that type of theme in the past, we do sometimes get people who say, well, on this project we delivered the following benefits which resulted in, this level of tangible return. But sometimes, and in fact there was one candidate a few years ago who was incredibly strong, and I remember vividly that the discussion was about a sort of an innovative approach to a problem. And what that discussion concerned was, well, there was this issue, and we were being pushed down this particular solution, and the VA concerned said, I actually looked at this and thought, I think there's another way we could approach this, and I think that would be less complex and less expensive by looking at it from a completely different angle. And within the organisation, that approach was actually adopted, And that was a very interesting angle on value. So all of these are acceptable, and all of the judges are very open to different people's ideas on that and on how value is assessed, if you like, or interpreted within the context that they're working.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Debbie. Okay, a question I think probably directly for Sandra here, and the question is, how has winning BA of the Year award helped you, your career, and you personally?
I think from a personal perspective, it made me feel more confident in my abilities as a BA. And as I said, the expert BA accreditation, I got help with that as well. But I mean, if you'd seen me at the conference, I was literally like a rabbit in the headlight when I'd won. I really didn't think I had a chance against the other candidates because they were just so good. So for me, it's given me much more confidence in my abilities, in myself. I think it's given me much more, I suppose, exposure in work. So, you know, as I said, I've been on lots of calls. Those photos have just gone everywhere. I'm in newsletters. And I think for other people as well, it's knowing somebody that has applied and won. So, you know, if she can do it, why can't I? So I think it's a great thing for other people as well. And I think, you know, it's a great thing for the industry to have this award and to celebrate, you know, something that was unknown 15, 20 years ago. You know, at that stage we didn't have a profession as such, and now we've got a fantastic industry with fantastic people in, and for me, I think it's just a brilliant celebration and recognition of what we are as an industry. So for me, confidence building has been the big thing for me, and learning to say I rather than we or team in applications, marvellous. From a work perspective, they've really celebrated it. It's been great for the practice. We've had a couple of winners now, and I know that from an industry perspective, the Lloyd's practice is seen as a very good and a very forward-thinking practice. So it's a reflection of all the hard work I think we've put in over the years in terms of our structure, in terms of our building BA capabilities, our training of BAs, our support of BAs. So I think overall it's a great thing, you know, whether you win, whether you get to the final, whether you apply or not, I think it's a great thing for you and the company.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we do have, the questions are still coming in thick and fast, which is great. So we do have some more time, so if there are if anyone has additional questions, do send them in and we'll answer as many as we can. The next question is specifically about the application and the application form. So Debbie, this might be one that you can answer. And the question is an observation really, that the three themes this year are quite wide, but sections B1 and B2 of the application form both refer to project in the sort of singular. And the question is, would it be acceptable to perhaps provide a range of projects to, you know, to support the application?
Yes, completely. It's interesting, when we actually word the application form, and we do look at it every year, the word project is always debated. You know, is that too narrow a focus? And we tend to use it just because it's what most people recognise. But on the application form this year, we've tried to sort of say describe the project or initiative to just try and make it a bit broader, because sometimes in organisations you might be working on a piece of work that the organisation doesn't recognise as a project at that point. But certainly, putting in more than one project is absolutely fine, and people do on the application form.
Fantastic, thanks Debbie. And on a similar vein, there's a question about whether it's necessary or desirable to include evidence with the application. So would it be useful for someone to attach evidence to the application? What would your take on that one be, Debbie?
Okay. I think evidence can be useful if it is something quite succinct and specific. For example, sometimes people put in a statement from their supporters or a supporter that actually references the fact that, you know, what the supporter's role was and how they really can validate what the person is saying about their work as a business analyst. So yes, that sort of evidence is very useful. Occasionally people put in a lot of evidence and they send lots of additional documents. With the best will in the world, you really don't have time to go into that in a lot of depth, and so quite often they aren't quite as reviewed in sufficient detail, if you like, to justify the extent of them. And it is much better to have something that's quite specific and succinct.
Okay, so stick with the specific, concise evidence if at all. Okay. Our next question, I think, is a question for Sandra. Sandra, the question is around whether being a winner of the award provides the opportunity to sort of further the profession, and I think the question is what can a winner of the award, or maybe even someone who gets to the final, so they have that profile. You've mentioned a few things that you've been involved with, like webinars and so forth, but what other opportunities does it provide to actually further the profession or the practice, you know, by having that spotlight?
For me, I think the great opportunity for me is, especially for me, I think it's within practice of my own community. So if you think about what you can do internally before you think about external, there's lots of things I think I can now help with more and have more kudos, perhaps. I'm exactly the same person as I was before I won the award, but I think from a visibility perspective, I'm much more widely known. So for me, it's a lot about mentoring, about understanding how to bring our junior VAs on, how to support our colleagues. And I think by winning the award, you know, you've got much more visibility and much more kudos. And I think people just believe in you more because all of a sudden you're good enough to be BA of the year. Because, you know, we all tend to put our heads down and get on with things. And perhaps, you know, we don't get that visibility in work amongst our communities that we should do. I mean, for example, in Lloyd's, we're several hundred BAs worth in the practice. So it's very difficult to, you know, get to that wider audience. So for me, it's been hugely helpful to be able to reach that wider audience via, you know, this award. And outside, I think it just gives you a great opportunity to get involved in things. I mean, I've been very lucky in that I've been asked to join the committee this year for the conference, but there's no reason why people can't apply to talk at the conference, to run a session at the conference, to get involved in webinars like this, to get involved with their IIBA branches. There's a wealth of things you can get involved in the industry. You can, you know, I'm, for example, an oral examiner for the oral exam, which is fantastic. I've been very lucky to be asked to do that. There's a wealth of things that you can do out there, and you don't have to be BA of the Year to do it. But for me, it's just given me that extra visibility, and I think people just believe in it. Even if you just get through to the final, you know, you don't have to win it. You get through to the final, just think, you've been judged one of the 5, 6, 7 best BAs, you know, from wherever, not just the UK, from externally, you know, from external to the UK. So, you know, for me, it's all about recognition and about belief and about people believing that you are good enough to mentor them, coach them, to support them. So I think it opens up a wealth of possibilities here.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Sandra. So we've got time just for a few more questions now, but we'll get through as many as we can. So the next question, Debbie mentioned about new techniques being referred to by upcoming BAs. What's the best way to learn about new and upcoming techniques?
Well, shall I answer that one, Adrian?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, okay. There's lots of ways. there's lots of ways to learn about what's upcoming and what new techniques are out there. And you know, we're so lucky these days because there's just a wealth of information. So typically, you know, you can look at things like, you know, IIBA events, for example, where quite often IIBA put on speakers, you know, who've got some new and interesting ideas. So that's a really good source. You can look at the BCS website. BCS quite regularly put up articles, they put up, they've got newsletters if you remember, but they have all sorts of information. Even looking at what, you know, new certifications there are in the market can sometimes help you. If you look at the syllabuses, they'll tell you the sorts of things that, that are being assessed these days. In terms of my own company, we have something called a knowledge hub, and we try to put up blogs every week. I know other people also blog. I know, you know, Adrian blogs as well, and quite often they're looking at either new techniques or new ideas using old techniques, or you know, all sorts of different things that are coming up, different things that people are talking about as issues that need to be addressed. Similarly, my company's got a YouTube channel, so we put up videos and things like that to help people. So there's a wealth of things out there. One of the things I do a lot is I do try to do a lot of reading, and I look at things like, I sometimes go on Amazon and just, you know, see if there are any new books in the information systems area and what sorts of topics they're addressing. You know, it's just a general awareness of all the things that are out there. We do have the Analyst Anonymous newsletter where we try to, you know, send out articles to people, hopefully about new ideas. And sometimes they're new ideas on, you know, how to do requirement solicitation, but sometimes it just gives you another angle. So, you know, it's all those sorts of things really, and it's having that general awareness that there's a wealth of information out there, and sometimes it's just looking for it. The other thing that I find, though, is very useful is just talking to other people who work in business analysis, because if you just talk to people about the sorts of things they're doing, it's amazing how many new ideas start to come out and people talk about something they've encountered. And I think one of the things we're very fortunate to have in business analysis is we've got quite a lot of strong networks, you know, in communities of practice within organisations, but also outside that. And I think that broader community often has a lot to say and a lot to offer. And I pick up all sorts of things from talking to people about, you know, what different ideas are out there and what lots of people are looking at. And I think that is a really useful way. But what I would say is the key thing is to be open to picking things up and to keep, you know, looking and learning, if you like. You know, I think if you're prepared to constantly think about what people are saying and what you're reading, then actually you're much more likely to pick up on the new things than if you just focus in on, well, this is the way we usually do it, if you know what I mean. So I think it's having that ability to really, you know, go out and actually look for things. And you know, there are so many resources out there to help you. To be honest with you, sometimes I Google terms and just look things up on Wikipedia just to see what people are saying, and then I follow some of the references. You know, it's as simple as that sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just a couple of things to perhaps add to that as well, Debbie. Social media I find quite useful, and I know people have a love-hate relationship with social media, but there are some useful LinkedIn groups, for example, where you can start to hear what people are talking about on other online forums. And if anyone has made the sort of transition to Twitter, there's a Twitter hashtag, BAOT, which stands for Business Analysis on Twitter. And if you look at that, there are sometimes some interesting articles, blogs, and so forth as well. And over time, actually, what we're planning to do at IIBA UK is make the website even more interactive. So the ability, for example, perhaps to have a discussion thread after an event to keep that conversation going. So there's a mixture of online and offline opportunities there as well.
And if I can just add to that, Adrian, I think you've both made a couple of really important points there. So it's not just about new techniques, it's about reinventing old techniques and looking at them in a different light and using them a different way, which I think is really important. And one of the things that I find really useful is talking to people in different organisations, not just at the scale of Lloyd, but some of the smaller organisations where there might only be a handful of VAs, because they look at things very differently because of their numbers and the size of things that they're looking at. So sometimes it can be really useful to speak to somebody in a completely different organisation, a different type of industry, a different size of industry. For example, I was recently talking to somebody in one of the local government areas, and they have got a minuscule number of VAs compared with Lloyd, and they're thinking of things very differently to us, purely because of the scale of things. So I think it's really important to talk to those people and understand how they're using perhaps the same techniques as you, but in a completely different way.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, a very useful point, and thanks for adding that. And, okay, so we've probably got time for just one last final question, and this question comes from it's actually from someone who's attended the conference in the past, and he writes that he's just really inspired, and in fact so inspired that he's planning to run an internal BA award in his own company. So what are the largest pitfalls that that you'd recommend that he avoids in actually setting up that internal BA award?
Would you like me to answer that one, Adrian?
Yeah, Debbie, if you could.
First of all, can I say, I think that's a great thing to do. And actually, a lot of the organisations with a significant size of practice, they will put forward maybe 2 applicants for BA of the Year because they have held an internal BA of the Year award themselves. So if you like, the people they're putting forward have been identified as the best at that point within their organisation. So that's actually quite a standard approach we've found with some companies. In terms of pitfalls, what we were very fortunate about when we took over this award was that some of us, myself included, had been involved with other awards previously. So we were very clear on how to make sure that we had a very, very well-defined process and that we had very clear criteria, because you have to make it very specific. And that's why we have the 3 themes every year, because that enables us then to, if you like, hone in on a particular aspect that we think is important at that particular point in time, and then we can build the criteria around those themes, and then making sure that we have a judging process that is clear and is completely objective. And that is what we always put in place right from the start, because the pitfalls are, if you don't have clear criteria and a clear process, is that actually, you know, sometimes you can get applications where you might think, oh, well, we're not quite sure. Well, if you've got criteria and process, you know exactly what it is you're doing. So that's really, really important.
I think a clear judging. I think a very clear independent process as well, because it's very difficult, I think, from an internal perspective if you know a lot of the candidates that are applying. So I think it's very important to have that independence there as well, in terms of that judging process, to make sure that it's a clear and transparent process.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, when we decide who the judges are, I think, as I said when I was going through our process, the application form judges judge individually and separately, and it is only the chief judge who then pulls those independent assessments together but does not change them, so that it's all completely done independently. And that's very important, because it really helps with the objectivity. And with the interview judges, what we try to do is make sure that each judge has a certain area and that they are an expert in that area, so that they're able to have a good discussion. So, for example, last year one of the themes was around softer skills, interpersonal skills, and we had a specialist from that world as one of the judges. All that does is it helps you to get a very clear, objective view.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. We must wrap up there, but thank you both for taking the time out today to talk to us about the BA of the Year award. And I think everyone dialed in will agree that it's a very, very worthwhile initiative, and I hope that that some or maybe all of the people listening to this will consider whether or not they can apply. So we may see even more applications this year than we did last year. So thank you very much, Debbie and Sandra. Just before we formally close the webinar, I just wanted to briefly remind people that if you've enjoyed this webinar, and I suspect that if you're dialed into this webinar, you're probably a fairly enthusiastic BA, well, irrespective of whether or not you are successful in your application for BA of the Year award, as Sandra mentioned, there are all sorts of opportunities out there to create awareness of the profession and to learn about new techniques and so forth. One of those ways is through IIBA UK. So IIBA UK is run by a team of enthusiastic volunteers across the country, and we run events everywhere from Scotland to North to Midlands to London, South West and Wales. So if you do want to meet other BAs, it's a really great way of doing it. Most events are free for members, and you can even attend most events as a non-member for just £10. If you're interested in finding out more, do go to the website. You can sign up and you'll receive emails when there are events and so forth. The Business Analysis Conference Europe is coming up in September, so it's well worth thinking about whether you might like to attend that as well. It's already been mentioned on the call. It's always such a great event with really great speakers and a great opportunity to network with a lot of other BAs as well. So with that, I'll formally close the call. Thanks again to everyone for dialing in, and a very big thanks to Debbie and Sandra for sharing your experiences there. So thank you very much, and have a good day.